Hi guys, so we are at Wilson's Creek right now, actually specifically at Gibson's Mill. We're about to go on the trail, and apparently John Gibson was actually homesteaded here with his family, and he suddenly became surrounded with 12,000 Confederate soldiers around his property and the mill. And we're gonna go walk around. Obviously his house and the mill are not standing today, but there are ruins according to the plaque. So it's pretty cool. You can do an audio tour where you can call in and listen to the history and everything. So we're about to go on the trail about a mile. Okay, see you then.
Okay, so we're getting ready to walk up here to the Ray Spring House. As you can see, Ash and her sister are walking up there right now. But basically, in the valley below, there's a stone spring house, part of the property of John Ray. The house, though, his house stands up here on the hill that she's walking up to, but down below, down there, down behind me, right there, spring house. And during and after battle, the house served as a field hospital for Confederate soldiers, and the Ray children carried cool water from the spring house for the wounded to drink. So surgeons also used the water to wash wounds, to cleanse their surgical instruments. That spring house also provided water and a cool place to store their milk, eggs, butter, vegetables, and other perishables, because, you know, they didn't have refrigerators back then. So anyway, here we go. Okay, so the Ray House is the only park structure on its original site. So they've moved some other structures around, apparently. So John Ray was a postmaster also, and he built this house in the 1850s. I will say that I'm sure it has been restored a little bit, at least the outside of it. So here, I'll give you a look at that here also. There were 12 people living here. John and Roxanne Ray and their 9 children and a mail carrier. They also had a slave, and her 4 children occupied a small cabin to the rear of the house. I can't see the back of it, so we'll see if it's there or not. But anyway, here is the house right here. So it's pretty well taken care of. As you can see, they've kept it restored on the outside and painted. I'm gonna say that the cabin where the slaves stayed is not there anymore. I'm not seeing it back here, unless it's on the other side. So let's look real quick. And they had a pretty nice view waking up every morning. I will say that. It's pretty out through there. Let's look around this back side over here of the house and see. Nope. No cabin, but there is a well house back here, but there's no cabin. So okay, so here's the inside of the house. It's all set up, I guess, how it would have been back in the day. Catching a little reflection off of the window. Sorry about that. It looks like you can go in there usually, but I think because of the coronavirus, you can't now. Here's another part. You can see all the way in there, into their dining room area even. So it's pretty nice. Nicely well kept anyway, is what I'll say. Okay, so there was a fight in the Rays cornfield. He watched the first stage of the Union defeat from the porch behind me that you guys saw earlier at 6:30 in the morning. So that's early. Soldiers appeared in his cornfield. The cornfield is the fenced high ground that's all the way up over there through these apple trees, which these apple trees are gorgeous, by the way. There's some apples coming up on it. But here, let's walk over here so I can show you where that cornfield is. Up through there. Here, let me zoom in for you. There's that fence line right there. And that is where the cornfield was, where the battle was held. So let's get back here to this and keep talking about this. From the right came Joseph Plummer's 300-man Army Battalion, sent by General Lyon to secure the Federal left flank. Plummer had observed the Pulaski, Arkansas artillery. Okay. The clash was short and decisive. And then Confederate Colonel James McIntosh inspired a daring charge through the corn that sent the Union States regulars running back to the creek, which you guys saw earlier. I showed you the creek, which is quite a ways that way, actually. And then we will get to Bloody Hill later on. So, okay, I don't know if Ash told you guys this or not. I haven't asked her, and she's all the way down there at the cars right now, because this is a large property, so it's like a 5-mile walk. And for us to get this in this morning, we decided we'll just drive through it, so that way we're not having to walk the whole 5 miles, because I've got to coach some baseball games today too, so I don't want to be like uber tired. But anyway, this is like the second deadliest battle west of the Mississippi during the Civil War. So pretty incredible thing to have in our state. So yeah, anyway, we will get on, and I'm not sure where our next stop is. Ash's sister has the map, so when we get to that point, I'll let you know. All right, see you then. Okay, so, all right. We've made it to the Pulaski, Arkansas battery location. Basically, this is the location where they had cannons set up to fire upon the battle on Bloody Hill. There is a spot where a cannon was located and how it was positioned. Back then, there weren't any trees in the way, so this was just a high hilltop to fire and let the cannonballs drop down.
There used to be a cannon.
Yeah, there used to be a cannon there. It's this location right there where the wheel sat and the anchor that held it down. It says here that their fire was directed where it could be advantageously used without injury to their own troops, sometimes at the opposing battery, at others against the assault of the enemy on the hill to the northwest. So, pretty cool stuff, honestly.
Price's headquarters, which is a major general. He was a major general for the Confederate side, and we're gonna go to his headquarters in the Pulaski Battery. Then we'll go over to the Battlefield Outlook, East Battlefield. So, about to have some fun and on trail. Oh, and looks like there is a house where his headquarters is located. Obviously would not be the original one, they probably built it up. Where it originated at.
Okay, so we are at the eye of the storm. Basically, we're at Price's headquarters, and they were shortly after 5 a.m. on August 10th, while General Price and Ben McCulloch were eating breakfast, the Union Army attacked. Looking up there in that area right there is Bloody Hill. So, that's where the Confederate generals saw their own soldiers running for their lives, and then the flash of Union cannon. So, immediately orders were shouted, and the Southerners organized into line of battle to attack the Federals on the hill. The Battle of Wilson's Creek began. For the next 6 hours, shells exploded overhead, which we were up there at the Arkansas Pulaski Battery back that way, and everything. And oh my goodness, look what just walked up on us. Look at this little guy right here. That's a little baby deer. Look at the little fawn. Hey guy. It just made a noise. It beeped. It went bleep. It did it again. Oh, he's such a little cutie. Look at him. There he goes. Okay, so the root of Sigil's, or Sigil, Franz, I don't know how to say his last name. Sigil or Sigil could be how you pronounce it too. I have to figure that one out. If somebody can correct me, that'd be great. There was about 1,200 men that would attack from the south. So basically what they tried to do was have a two-pronged surprise attack. From General Lyon, main column with about 4,000 men would strike from the north, and Sigil, or Sigil, however you pronounce that one, we'll just call him Franz, because that's his first name. 1,200 would attack from the south. So,
but the plan was not effective.
No, it was not. So they do have a back-off battery. There's some cannons right over here that are pretty neat.
Pretty cool.
I'll get you more of a close-up here in a minute. So, anyway, yeah, and here's the map. It shows us where we're at compared to this. And it looks like up there in that area is where Sigil retreated, or Franz retreated to. So yeah, I mean, this is a big, massive area. So let's go look at the back off battery over here. Well, there's other batteries in places also, Bledsoe's and Reed's battery, but you can't see them. I don't think they have any cannons set up for that yet. So. All right, so here's a cannon. I'm gonna look down inside there. Pretty neat down in there, honestly. So I think this is what they would have had up there on top of the Pulaski, Arkansas, because looking at it, it's got the similar setup on how to keep them anchored down. Oh, this was a gift. It's pretty neat stuff. I'm sure that one over there is also a gift. There's another one over that way also. So, okay, so we're up at the top of Bloody Hill, and there's the view back down towards all the other areas. Clearly more trees have grown up since then. Basically, what happened was 4,200 men for General Lyon, Nathaniel Lyon, for the Union Army. He was hoping to surprise them with a Sleepy's encampment spread, and he would end the Southern Army's advance towards Springfield and keep Missouri in the Union. But Missouri was never officially part of the Union or officially part of the Confederacy. It was one of those in-between states, if I do remember correctly. But taking advantage of the high ground and adjusting their positions to Southern threats, there was a battle of 5 hours, and they lost a quarter of their men. So basically where I'm standing is near the center of the Union line, and here's a artist rendition of that line. Apparently it was dotted with oak trees, I mean, as it is now, but I think there are a little bit more than what there was back then. Okay, so this here is a sinkhole where 30 unidentified Union soldiers were buried because of decomposition. They're unidentified, they didn't know who they were, so, well, hence the name unidentified. But this is where they were buried, and I believe it says here that the reason for it was they were decomposing so fast and the flies became intolerable, and they found this sinkhole to be a convenient burying place. But in 1867, the military reinterred the bodies buried here and elsewhere on the battlefield in Springfield National Cemetery. So they moved them. So the bodies are no longer underneath here, obviously. But they moved the bodies to Springfield National Cemetery, which is over on Glenstone Avenue, actually. Drive by it all the time. So if you're ever over by Battlefield Mall, cemetery is actually right next door to go see. So, and General Lyon, they had a placard over there for him that I was reading, and actually he was the first Union general to die during the Civil War, and actually he went through my hometown of Rolla, so which is pretty neat. Had a stop there at one point on wagon for people to pay their respects, and then he got on train all the way to Connecticut. But during that, it stopped in 4 cities for people to pay their respects. So